Token 2049 in Dubai, and I have here with me Theo with Off the Grid GunZ Games. He is the director of Web3. This is the man that made Off the Grid decentralized and brought Web3 into the game. How's it going, Theo? Welcome to the desert.
Doing fantastic. It's a little bit hot. Just to be very, very clear here, I did not bring Web3 into the project with 420 amazing employees and two amazing founders, and then Neil Blomkamp, co-founder, that from the start had planned for this to be a Web3 centric project.
You're the man who executed on that vision. I correct myself here.
I'm the person that's the front face currently of the company, traveling, doing our talks at the different conferences, giving interviews, etc.
Well, let me ask you, all the way here in Dubai, you are representing gaming. What's the theme here? What's on the mind of the founders who are here from Web3 Gaming?
Well, so I can only tell you what's on our mind, right? Obviously, not for other founders. But what's on our mind is how do we make Web3 gaming as accessible as possible? And our thesis is that in order for mainstream to embrace Web3, it needs to be easy, transparent, and completely in the background. So when you install our game, it feels like a regular gaming experience. You don't need to set up a wallet. You don't need to swap any tokens. You don't need to on-off ramp any fiat. All of it is done and taken care of for you, while you're still fully interacting with a P2P marketplace, a peer-to-peer marketplace that is all based on the in-game items that, of course, are all tracked on-chain. They're all, on-chain assets and so on and so forth. So that's our main mission with our flagship product, Off the Grid, that obviously most people have heard about, the first ever blockchain project to launch on PlayStation and Xbox, but also with our ecosystem, GunZ, which powers Off the Grid, that has a lot of different tools to help other AAA game developers to onboard their projects to Web3 as well.
Talking about some key ingredients here that investors are looking for as well to invest in Web3 gaming. Onboarding is at the top of that list. And I want to ask a broad question for a second here, if you will, because Web3 gaming right now is in a challenging phase. The money is tight right now. The funding is tight. And a lot of founders are here to increase that funding because it takes a very long time to build a game. What do you think investors are looking for right now from Web3 gaming?
Well, I think in general, the time to start building games that focus on a great experience and on the gamer themselves is what really is happening right now. And investors, I believe, want to see real products being built, real games being built, and they want to see a clear path to having gamers onboarded to the game for the actual gaming experience, not to experience, what used to be called in 2021, like gamified staking in essence, right? Where there was really no game behind it. I think that's what investors are looking for, but obviously they're looking for good teams. They're looking ideally for teams that already have some traction, an existing prototype that people love playing. So I would say that those are some of the main things that investors are looking for.
Let's go back into focus a little bit on what you are doing for the game. If there are people out there who want to know, why does gaming need to be decentralized? How does a off-the-grid player benefit from the game being decentralized? What would you say to them?
So again, I think in our specific case, it's less about decentralization and more about asset ownership. So I usually like giving always an example out of my own personal life. I have two boys that when they were teenagers, they would play Off the Grid. We'd play as a family. And over several years, they probably spent in excess of $1,000 each on in-game items. Inevitably, eventually, they stopped playing Fortnite and they came to me and said, or my oldest came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, how do I get my money out of this? How do I get my money back?" And I said that you can't. And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" Well, because for kids these days, digital asset ownership is the most natural thing in the world. They ask for, Fortnite V-Bucks over, traditional clothes, over actual real world clothes, because their virtual clothes are really, really important for them, for their social status at school, etc. And I explained to him that he can't get the money out, and I explained to him what a EULA was, etc. But he was shocked, right, that he actually didn't own these assets, that he was just renting them and loaning them from the company. So at the most basic level, we firmly believe that if a gamer spends money on something, they ought to own that. And if they want to move on to a different game, they should be able to monetize these assets, at least get their money out, if not make a profit. And even beyond that, if they just simply don't want to have a certain skin anymore because they are bored of it, they should be able to sell it, and buy something else for it. And that's at the core of our gamer experience. It's a peer-to-peer marketplace. Gamers purchase from other gamers that have either extracted the asset from within the game or earned the asset, on a battle pass, or bought it as part of the subscription in a monthly content pack. So that's really the basis of it.
I'm glad you bring that up, because I do want to ask you ownership, and I'm going to even add interoperability, because I envision a day sometimes in the future where we can take those assets from one environment into another environment if and when is appropriate. What are some challenges that you see still in ownership and interoperability that we have to mitigate?
Well, so I always jokingly say that interoperability with in-game assets is more of a cute party trick. It's not really that useful because, why would you want to take Harry Potter's magic wand?
I knew you were going to say that.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, that's the God honest answer. Now, where it gets interesting is, of course, imagine a user grinding at a game for a long time, having a lot of accomplishments, having a lot of tools, assets, in-game items, etc., that they've earned. And now they got to start from scratch on, whatever the next version of that game or some sister game in the ecosystem. It would make a lot of sense to allow the user to translate or convert, if you will, these assets to some other starting assets that they have then in that game, so that all of that time isn't completely, lost, so to speak, if they want to move to another game in the ecosystem. That I see as something very, very valuable and useful and, logical. And getting certain benefits maybe for certain accomplishments, I see also something really, really interesting. For example, we had an interesting event in our game during our April content pack. Everyone that logged in on April Fool's Day, after completing one game, got this, funny looking paper mask, right? And in addition to that, after that April Fool's Day, we had 7 days where users had to kind of run around the island, find certain hidden pictures, all over the island, and then they could win one of 199 golden versions of that same mask. So I can envision a future, right, where as you're grinding, as you're gaining certain assets, some of these assets could give you access to some really unique, value add, loyalty reward type of events that get you even more assets, that you can then earn, win, etc. So that's where, in my opinion, this is heading to, right, as opposed to the, like I said, cute party trick of using one asset, across multiple games.
Absolutely. And what you guys are doing, you are leading the way, but you have some big competition right along next to you as well. I think that, especially with the genre that you have, a shooters genre, that's a very competitive genre. Tell me, to gain market share, how would you stand out against your competitors like Call of Duty or Fortnite?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm going to say great job, realizing that our competition is really in Web 2 and not in Web. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Within the Web 2 space, we set out to build what we call the Battle Royale 2.0 experience. It wasn't just about creating a shooter game. It wasn't just about creating a Battle Royale game and just copying what other people have been doing. We analyzed, and our founders specifically analyzed, like, what are the current issues with Battle Royale games? Well, number one, the most obvious one is, right, you don't have asset ownership. So we addressed that with a peer-to-peer marketplace. Number two, one of the biggest complaints that shooter players have about why they don't play Battle Royale games is that there's no storyline. So we have an amazing content creation team, and the whole kind of goal of our Battle Royale 2.0 experience is to wrap a 60-hour storyline into the actual Battle Royale experience. 60 hours on both sides of the conflict, written by none other than Richard Morgan, who wrote the book Altered Carbon, which was turned into an award-winning Netflix show. In addition to that, our co-founder, or one of the co-founders, is Neil Blomkamp, a kind of award-nominated film director in the sci-fi genre that did District 9, Chappie, Elysium with Matt Damon a couple of years ago, Gran Turismo for Orlando Bloom. So he's kind of the chief visionary behind the whole kind of universe and the nitty-gritty cyberpunk theme that we have within that universe. So that has never been done before, right? Storyline, asset ownership, peer-to-peer marketplace. In addition to that, we have something very, very interesting, and that is cyberlimbs, right? This is a cyberpunk universe. We have cyberlimbs and a really interesting kind of fun story of people, in essence, chopping off their limbs in order to then get cyber limbs, in order to then compete on this island. We're able to regenerate people from small tissue samples so they can kind of do whatever they want, basically, right? If they die, we take a little piece of tissue, regen machine regenerates them. But it makes for very, very interesting gameplay because you could shoot somebody's legs off, run over, and steal their legs, right? If you like them better. In the meantime, the other person kind of is crawling away, without legs, trying to find other legs. And if they find other legs, they put them on, run away. You could have an arm that's a grappling hook. You could have an arm that's a grenade launcher. You could have an arm that's an energy shield that collects bullets and shoots them back at you. Legs that make you jump really high, legs that make you run really fast, etc. It allows you basically almost virtually unlimited amounts of decision-making choices, of strategic decisions that you can make, because you find these items all on the island, in these loot boxes. And in other games, you're limited to either a variety of weapons, or at the most, if you have a specific, kind of archetype of a healer, an archer, or whatnot, you choose that at the beginning, and then you have to stick with that for the rest of the game. So we believe that these types of kind of innovations, which we call again Battle Royale 2.0, are what sets our game apart. And coincidentally, I personally play on a regular basis as well when I'm at home, and I usually like playing with random teammates, because I always like to ask, hey, how did you find out about us? And most importantly, what did you play before? And 9 out of 10 people that I play with say I played Call of Duty Warzone before, I played Apex Legends before, but I like this game so much better, I moved on from these other games to play off the grid. That is probably the biggest praise that I could have ever kind of wished for, and that's what we're getting. So,
bringing innovation into gaming. This is very exciting by a very talented team behind a very incredible game project. Theo, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing some of your strategy and technology with us. Anything you want to leave the listeners and viewers with? How can they get involved, for builders, for players?
So there's several things. Number one, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. Go to playoffthegrid.com, download the game on Xbox, on PlayStation, on Epic Games, try it out, check it out, see how you like it. That's one. On X, it's at playoffthegrid. And then, of course, our ecosystem, Gun by GunZ on X, or gunbygunz.com on the web. We are looking for other game developers that want to bring their projects to our GunZ ecosystem, where we allow for them to white label all of our tools, which include wallet, a blockchain scan, NFT marketplace, and many more tools, to also help them onboard mainstream gamers to their products. So that's really the best way to keep in touch with us and check us out.
You heard it. All right. Theo, thank you so much for your time and attention. Enjoy the rest of your event.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.